Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the webinar So You Think You Can Drive Distracted, offered by the National Safety Council in cooperation with the Texas Department of Transportation. So thank you for joining us today. As we go through the presentation, if you have questions, you can pop those into the chat and we'll answer those at the end. And just keep your microphones muted and we'll get started. So I want to introduce April Ramos. She is our presenter for this morning, and she is a program manager with the National Safety Council, and she works on the Our Driving Concern program. So I'm going to turn it over to her to get started.
Thank you, Deanne. Again, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning, taking time out of your day to talk about distracted driving. So you think you can drive distracted? Let's get right into it. A little bit about our program. If you don't already know about the Our Driving Concern program, we are an employer transportation safety program. We cover the whole state of Texas, but we also cover a couple other states that I'll tell you about later. But our goal is to help employers promote safe driving practices amongst their employees, both on and off the road. And our goal is to save lives. That's our primary goal. But we also want to help employers cut costs of traffic crashes. One way we do this is webinars like this, but we have a lot of other resources that we'll share with you towards the end of the presentation. At the National Safety Council, we love to say safety is personal. We truly believe that. So you're looking at a picture of my family, and yes, we all have mustaches on. You're not seeing things. This was my son's birthday last year, my youngest son, and we thought it would be funny to all wear mustaches. But I'm going to use my family as we go through the presentation to illustrate, again, just how personal safety is. We all are from Texas, we all live in Texas, but in different parts of the state. But let's take a moment to look back in time and kind of see, how far we've come. A lot of times when we talk about traffic safety, we tend to talk about things we need to do and, how we need to be better at certain areas and fatalities and crashes, and it can seem kind of negative and kind of heavy, but we have come a long way. So if you look at the photo on the left, it's around the turn of the century, of the 20th century, and you can see the roads then, what those look like, the road users, so people, around the vehicles, you see pedestrians, and then the vehicles themselves, what kinds of vehicles are on the road. If you look at the picture on the right, you can observe the same things. And we have, hopefully, better roads, better vehicles, and better safety measures. And then also just want to take a look inside the vehicle. Dashboards have changed a lot. If you didn't already know this, if you haven't been in a newer vehicle lately, if you look to the far right, you'll see 2025. It's a lot of touchscreen technology similar to your mobile phone. But if you look to the left and remember, again, I know none of you were probably born in the 1900s, but you can see a picture of what one type of vehicle dashboard looked like. There's a lots of switches and toggles and things you have to manually press and manipulate. The shape dashboards are different as well, especially in the 70s. There's a lot of rough edges, sharp edges, and again, that 2025 dashboard, much more streamlined, smooth, and passenger friendly. But let's really talk about the driving task for a moment, because we do talk a lot about this in the traffic safety world. But what do we mean when we say the driving task? Well, according to the Federal Highway Administration, the driver is continuously balancing three main tasks, which are control, guidance, and navigation. So what do we mean by control? Hopefully that's a little common sense. We mean all the activities involved in the driver's interaction with the vehicle, right? The actual steering, but also like the feel of the road and any other information that you're getting from the vehicle. And so when we talk about guidance, we're talking about how the driver interacts with other vehicles and the roadway, the surrounding environment. So a lot of things external to their own vehicle. And then navigation is, how are you going to get to where you're going? So it's important to keep these three tasks in mind as we talk about distraction, because hopefully you're already putting together how the things we choose to do in the vehicle, aside from driving the vehicle, can affect the driving task. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Texas law now. What is our, did I skip ahead too far? I did. How'd that happen? Sorry about that. Technology. Okay, so before we get to the Texas law, I want to talk about the types of distraction behind the wheel. This is probably review for everybody, but let's just take a moment to be sure we are all on the same page. This is part of this year's National Safety Council's Distracted Driving Awareness Month. This is one of our visuals that talks about the types of distraction. So you have visual, manual, and cognitive. So that is anything that takes your eyes off the road, your hands off the wheel, and your mind off of driving. And that can be many different types of things. But what data shows us is that oftentimes it is mobile devices. And you've probably seen this yourself in your own driving, whether you were driving for work or driving for your personal vehicle. But what does the Texas law say about this? Well, some of you may know that as of September 1st, 2017, we did get a law to help us with this a little bit, basically saying that if you use a portable wireless communication device to read, write, or send an electronic message while operating your vehicle, you commit an offense. So it's against the law to send messages on your mobile device. So is this law good? Sure, it's good. Could it be better? Absolutely. It absolutely could be better. It could be more encompassing, and it could include other components of your mobile device, not just sending the messages. But we'll take it. We'll take what we can get. And I've referenced the transportation code. If you need to look up the language of that statute, it's on the screen. So I alluded to Texas data. So this is the overall data for distracted driving crashes for 2014. Well, what do I mean when I say distracted driving crashes? So according to the CRIS system, which I'll explain to you in a minute, this database for Texas, distracted driving crashes are crashes where any person is reported with driver inattention, distraction in the vehicle, or cell or mobile device use. So this encompasses everything. That when you see these numbers, it's not just cell or mobile device use. But here you go, you can see for last year, and they will still firm up these numbers, but these are the preliminary numbers for 2014. You can see the number of crashes, which is at 112,288, followed by the units, which they mean vehicles, and then how many people were involved in those crashes is that last bullet. So I went ahead and pulled 10 years worth of data. Yes, sorry, I had to be sure. 10 years worth of data from 2015 to 2024 for these distracted driving crashes. So you can see from that red trend line that we are trending downward, but we still have some work to do. We had that big dip in 2020. Obviously, that was a COVID year. So, we have caveats like that for all kinds of data. But then you see that dip in 2018, immediately following the passage of that law in 2017. So again, we are on a general downward trend, but we have a ways to go. So I talked about the photo and how safety is personal at the beginning of the presentation. While I can't pull up every single county, because Texas has over 200 counties, so we can't zoom in on every county in Texas. We don't have time for that today, and you probably don't want me to do that. But I thought we'd take a look at the counties that me and my family live in. And so that little star that just popped up on the screen, that's where I live, in Williamson County. It's just north of Austin. And in my county, you can see the number of distracted driving crashes that we had last year, the number of units, and the number of people. Here's what that looks like mapped out for the county. So you can kind of see clusters where it gets larger. So that first circle, that's close to my house. So it's a little cause for concern for me. And that second circle, I actually teach yoga close to where those are. And then lastly, under that 100 is where Round Rock Donuts is. I don't know that that's necessarily a correlation, but I just thought I'd throw that in there. All right, now we come to Tarrant County. And you can see the number of crashes that they had is substantially greater than mine. And that little red dot that just came up, that's where my dad lives. So again, this is personal. As I'm looking at this data, these aren't just numbers for me, and hopefully they're not for you. It does help to inform us in our jobs, but again, it also helps inform us as we make decisions, as we drive in these areas and in these communities. Here's that mapped out. Tarrant County, the population is much larger than my county of Williamson. And so you can see this mapped out in what they call a cluster. Yeah, it's just a lot. Tarrant County, a lot of distracted driving crashes. So I'm zooming in a little bit here, and you can see this larger cluster. This is in downtown Fort Worth. Again, it just helps to inform you if you have employees that are driving there personally or professionally. You can help see what these hotspots are. And then lastly, we have Guadalupe County. In that beginning photo, my aunt and uncle were also in that photo, and this is where they live. Right there on the 46, just north of Seguin. And this is a much smaller county, a rural county. So you can see they have under 1,000 distracted driving crashes last year, much smaller numbers as far as the units involved and the people involved. So of the 3 counties that we've covered, clearly Tarrant County, large metropolitan county, many, many crashes. Down to Williamson, mid-sized county, the crashes reflect that. And then a rural county, again, the numbers reflect that. Regardless of what type of county that you live in, distracted driving crashes, really for the most part, are preventable. So again, just seeing what that looks like for Guadalupe County in a cluster map view. So you have a little cluster going into San Antonio, which is no surprise, right? And then a little cluster in downtown Seguin. So all this information, all this data that we just went over came from the Crash Records Information System, or otherwise known as CRIS. There's over 6 million crash records in that database for Texas, spanning 2015 to 2025. This is a TxDOT funded database, and it's actually required of all law enforcement in Texas that when they respond to a crash scene and fill out a form for that crash, it's called a CR3. By law, they have to enter all that information into this system, and it helps inform all kinds of decisions, right? From roadways to people like us who are trying to prevent traffic incidences. I put the QR code up there. Is a publicly accessible database. So I hope that you will take advantage of that. You can pull data not only for county, but for cities, for particular roadways. There's just a lot of ways that you can extract data from the system. And if you need any help, a mini tutorial, I'm happy to do that. Just pop your info in the chat or email us after the presentation and we can set something up. And then let's segue into commercial drivers. So Nationwide Insurance did a survey and they published their nationwide driving behaviors insight report last May of 2024. And here's what commercial drivers' primary distractions were. That 55% were using their GPS or navigation system, responding to text messages, talking on mobile phones, texting or talking, and checking social media apps. So really all of that could be on a mobile device. The GPS navigation, we don't know if that's on a separate device or it's integrated into their vehicle, but it doesn't bode well. You know, this really tells us that commercial drivers are being distracted by mobile devices. So, oops. Okay, sorry. Okay, there it goes. As you're watching this video, I want you to notice how far did the driver travel without looking at the road? And I'll play it again because it's a short video. How long were the driver's eyes on the phone versus on the road? So those two things, how far do you think he traveled and how long was he looking down at his phone? So one more time. So pop into the chat if you're watching and paying attention to the minutes. How long do you think he was looking down and how far he traveled? 6 seconds. Okay. 500 feet. Thank you, Dawn, for your response. Anybody else? One mile, about 1,000 feet. They didn't provide me with the answer for that video, but he went quite a distance, 3 or 4 seconds. So depending on his speed, he did travel quite a distance, and he's lucky he didn't crash into anything, right? He veered off on the side and then, was able to get back onto the roadway. But had there been if there hadn't been a shoulder or a spot there, that would have been a lot worse. Outcome would have been much, much worse. Thank you for your responses. So what can motivate people to change? Well, at the top of that list, it's bolded, it's underlined for employers, is strong workplace policies. Laws prohibiting distracted driving, we do have one. It could be better. Technology. So you saw in that video that he was being recorded by an in-vehicle monitoring system. And in that instance, I don't know that it helped him much, but overall, we do see a lot of success with those. And then messaging campaigns. You specifically do. We just said create or review workplace driving policies. So these are the 3 asks that I'm asking you asking you to consider today. The second one is participate in our DDAM, which is our Distracted Driving Awareness Month campaign with the National Safety Council. And then use driving focus or driving mode on your mobile device, this existing technology that's free. So let's talk about those workplace driving policies. This is our driving concern sample safe driving policy. You can access that by scanning the QR code and keep your phone out, speaking of phones, because I have a lot of QR codes and I'm going to actually show you how to turn on the autofocus if you have an Apple phone. But here is like I said, our sample safe driving policy that you can take a look at. You can adopt it as is, or you can tweak it or pull out language if your existing policy, you want to add something from ours to yours. Another example of a workplace driving policy or policies can be found by going to the National Distracted Driving Coalition website. And again, you have a QR code to take you there right away. This is only one of the pieces that they have on their website to help you develop safe communication policies for workplaces. Really just a wealth of information there as well. So I hope you'll check that out. And again, review your existing policies. And don't forget to include your employees when you're creating or reviewing those policies. If they have a say in the policy, they're much more likely to stick to it, right? And then we talked about awareness campaigns. This is National Distracted Driving Awareness Month. You can get free resources on our website, the Our Driving Concern website. And I'll give you the straight link to the DDM website here in just a minute. But you can see some of those resources there to the right. And then we get to your mobile device. So go ahead and take out your Apple phone. If you have one right now, I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm going to give you a quick tutorial. I'm not going to do the Samsung device today because I didn't think anyone would want to sit through 2 tutorials, but let's do this Apple phone. If you have an Apple mobile phone, go ahead and take that out. and go to settings, and then click on focus. And then if you've never set up driving focus before, there'll be a little blue plus sign right below your power indicator, like how much battery life you have. Click on that blue plus sign, and then you'll click on the driving icon and follow the prompts to set up the driving focus. And I strongly encourage you to turn on the feature that will engage the driving focus automatically. So as soon as your phone recognizes that you're in a vehicle because you're moving quickly, more quickly than a human could walk or run, it will activate the driving focus mode. And what that does is it will send a message to anybody that texts you saying, hey, you're driving right now, and you will respond to them when you get to where you're going. Now, you can also customize that message. I've done that because it doesn't say that it's an automatic reply. And when I first engaged it a couple years ago, I had friends say, your message sounded like it was written with AI. So I made sure to add, this is an automated message. I'll text you back when I get to where I'm going. So please, if you do nothing else today, I hope you will turn that on your phone, because what better way to create a safety culture, right? Or bolster your existing safety culture by setting a great example, right? This broadcasts to everybody, whether they're a work acquaintance or family and friends, that you are not going to use your phone and drive. You're going to concentrate on that driving task. No Apple phone. I know some of you don't have an Apple phone. You might have a Samsung. You can Google Samsung driving mode, and it will give you the directions on how to engage that if you have a Samsung device. Those are the two most common types of mobile phones, by the way. So you have a different kind. I'm sure most of them these days do have a similar feature. So research that for yourself. And then teaming with NSC. So we would love to team with you. We would love to collaborate. We are actually in 4 different states currently, and we're adding more states, but here's officially where we are right now. So most of you are probably from Texas on this call, but if you operate in another state as well, we'd love to work with you there. You can see our website listed there below. We're Texas, Ohio, Louisiana, and Nebraska. And what you'll find on our website, and again, there's a QR code to take you straight there. You'll find so many things. We like to say that we're a turnkey program. So if you have no transportation safety program, we have everything that you would need. If you have an existing program, we have lots of materials to help you supplement your existing program. Anything from posters to safety huddles, traffic tabloids, safety coach cards. We have an e-learning system with an LMS system, and tons of tools and templates. So I hope you'll take the time to look at each one of these categories and see what you can use for your program. Thank you guys so much for participating in our somewhat quick distracted driving webinar today. I hope you learned a thing or two and definitely got some resources that you can use today. If you have any questions, please feel free to come off mute and ask questions, or if you're more comfortable typing it in the chat, you're welcome to do that. Will you be able to provide us with the slides to access the QR codes at a later time? I don't see why not.
Yeah, we can do that. I'll do a follow-up email, a follow-up communication in the next couple of days, and we'll include the slides so you'll have the QR codes. Thank you, Cynthia.
Anybody else with a question or a comment? You're so welcome, Paul. Can you please share with me about the number 3 slide about the 3 types of distractions? You just want to share the slide?
What I'll do is I'll put the slides in the follow-up email. And I'll try to do that, like I said, before the end of the week.
Oh, yes.
You'll get an email and it will have the slide information.
Okay, and I think one of those QR codes will take you to the Distracted Driving Awareness Month website. So it'll have that visual of the 3 types of distractions as well as all those other materials. So we'll get that all out to you.
And I'll put we have a poster of that, and I'll put that in the follow-up email as well. So as you guys are exiting out today, definitely make sure you grab this QR code on the screen. This is our evaluation. It is very quick. It's just a couple of questions, and that does help us with future feedback or feedback for future resources, webinars, trainings, all of that. So definitely, please, we appreciate your feedback and your comments. With that, we're going to end today's session. Thank you, April, for a very informative session on distracted driving. And for everyone that joined today, we know your time's valuable and you chose to spend it with us. And so we appreciate each of you and your time today. And with that, this concludes this webinar. Thank you.